And now talk about having players. We have players here in Nigeria as well. Now, Osine has talked about this particular issue on, different forums. And now the recent statement credited to him is that he's assured that there would be Eagles call up for the home-based players. It's been this clamor, local content, players from the home scene being invited to the national team setup. But looking at the NPFL and following the league very closely, you think we'll have the players here that can walk into that national team setup despite the array of stars, bulk of them foreign-based players, and make the difference in that national team setup?
I do not think we have the players we can just hand over a starting bet to from the home base. I do not think so. I've looked at a couple of players. I do not think so. But what I have noticed has been one thing, that if you give home-based players opportunities to play in the national team, maybe come in second half, they get better. And before you know it, the league also improves. So it has a ripple effect on the league in the long run and the growth of these players in the long run.
Yeah, but, talk about having players in the local league get to the national team setup and then how that impacts the quality in the league. We've clearly seen every single player from the home, scene that has bossed onto the national team setup saying the next thing they're looking for moves away from Nigeria.
Well, it's part of the game, right?
So we have a situation where, for instance, Anaye Wala was invited a couple of times as one of the home-based players, being one of the best in the scene, had a couple of invitations. Next thing, bam, is off to Tunisia. He's no longer a home-based player, and so misses that slot.
Well,
so we can't quite have that, story of maybe having the likes of Rabi Ali been very consistent on the local scene. He's almost identified with Kano Pillars, a symbol of the football club. We can't quite have those kind of players. And how problematic will it be for the national team?
Brad James is not problematic for me. The thing is this: you don't need status quos for me in the league. When you have great players, all you need to do, whether they play a season or two, it impacts the league one way or the other. In terms of publicity, a Super Eagles player is playing in the league. In terms of performances of these other players, looking forward to. So there's a sense of competition. I want to be better than that Super Eagles player. I want to step up my game, and clubs and footballers are doing their bit to step up their games. But the truth of football is players will always move. Players will always move. My only problem that I have with the Super Eagles setup had been this, Brad James. When you raise a player from the home base and he moves abroad, the next thing we dump the player. I've seen it happen all the time. Name them. We never get to invite them. And I'm looking forward to a time where we'll bring back some sort of friendly competition we had in those days, like the LG Cups, which gave these other players, sort of French players, who were in the mainstay in the Super Eagles abroad, opportunity to play, and from there, you can select them to the national team. Before you come in, this is it. You look at Nwakali. If Nwakali was given these friendly matches opportunities, he would have been a mainstay in the Super Eagles quite earlier than now and probably perform better in his club side.
Yeah, but again, if you talk about inviting players, let's say Anaye Wala, used him as an instance a while ago, and then he's now moved to the Tunisian league. He's no longer a home-based player, so that slot automatically must move to another. Now, when he moves to Tunisia, he's now seen as a player based outside the shore of Nigeria, so he will not have to jostle for places with foreign-based players. So, should we create a template? Maybe we'll have locally based players, African-based players, and then foreign. But okay.
No, this is why I look at it. The only thing Nigeria contributes to these players, for example, I look at it at the time where Ahmed Musa was looking for a club, and many Nigerians said Ahmed Musa should not be invited to the Super Eagles. The question I ask, what does Nigeria offer these players at the end of the day, Brad James? What Nigeria offers these players is the platform. And sometimes when you help a player to leave the home-based team to the foreign-based team, and you throw the player away, no. Let's create some light, friendly games where these players develop. It's the developmental process continues for me.
Maybe that's where they are. They belong to the Super Eagles B team. That's Chan. We have a Chan Eagles squad.
Chan is for home base.
Yeah.
Chan is for home base. When you're playing, do friendly matches. Let the world see. There are players that can go to the English Premier League, no matter how good they are, if they don't have a cap for that country. And we know these things. My concern is let Nigeria create a platform for these players. It's not about inviting your best players when the players are so good and you invite them to play for you. The question is, what are you doing for these players in terms of that development, in terms of projecting them to the world?
Well, they play for football clubs, so should develop within the
No.
club's setup.
Look at what the English teams are doing. A young player comes in and you're playing quite well. They give you the opportunity.
That was on a lighter note.
Yes.
I got the perspective of having these players come into the national team setup. It mustn't always be about the regulars. Yeah. If you head into big tournaments, there are sure names that can't miss the roster. But there must be that level playing ground where players understand that, if they play well, irrespective of where they play, they'll be given the opportunity to equally represent the national team side by side with the likes of Kelechi Iheanacho, Wilfred Ndidi, Moses Simon, Alexander Iwobi, and the rest of the big players that play in far more glamorous leagues. So this would be a conversation with further later tomorrow as we have developing stories. Blyden, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Brad James. Always a pleasure.
Appreciate you. Now, the conversation continues beyond here.